that you guys can hear me. Now you can hear me. Hello, beautiful bosses. I'm so excited to be back in on the scene.
That you guys can
on
hear
the
me. Now
internet
you can hear me.
streets.
Hello, beautiful.
It has definitely been a long journey, just taking some hiatus. So glad to be back and excited to be back on the side of real estate as a loan officer. So if you do not know what I've done in the past, I've been an investor, a homeowner, a seller, a buyer, still as a renter. We rent properties as well as being a loan officer. So what I love about being a loan officer in real estate is there's so much that you can be able to benefit from being in real estate, whether that is renting out properties, whether that's flipping properties, whether that is finally having a home for you and your family, a lifetime home, or being able to just move different places. And so my goal here is to make sure that real estate has the ability to enable you to be to treat it as an asset versus a liability. So an asset puts money in your pocket and a liability takes money out. And essentially, my goal here is it all comes down whether you are a purchaser, refinancer, or an investor, you have to be a qualified buyer. And so these are things that if you think like a underwriter, these are the things that they're going to look at. But also just to prepare yourself if you are purchasing a home for the first time, or you may want to refinance so that you can pay off debt, or you want to become an investor so that you can be able to grow your real estate portfolio. Whatever it is, these are the main four things that we look at in the real estate, in the mortgage side, to make sure that you are a qualified buyer. All right. So if you have any questions, of course, make sure that you put them in the chat. I'll be looking over here, which is where my screen is, to see if there are any questions or comments or anything. But we're going to move right along so you can get the information and start putting things in action. All right. So the first thing that's going to determine if you are a qualified buyer is going to be your credit. So think of it like this. What is the character of this borrower, and can they pay from past experiences? And so if you have, let's say, for instance, if you are a buyer and you have a 580 credit score, well, you wouldn't qualify for a conventional loan, because a conventional loan, you have to have a minimum credit score of 620 in some lender programs. And so that automatically allows for a lender to say, okay, do they qualify for this program? Yes or no. Okay. And there are different programs for different type of borrowers. And your score is what's going to qualify you or disqualify you for that program. And essentially what that is telling the lender, are you worth the risk that they're willing to take on? So for instance, let's say you have a 700 credit score, right? You can pretty much qualify for any of the programs across the board, anywhere from commercial lending to non-QM, conventional, everything. So later program, we'll get more in depth in programs. But the higher your credit score, the more programs you're able to qualify for, and the better pricing. And when I say pricing, from a lender standpoint, y'all, I'm thinking like a lender, okay? So mind me, but I'm gonna tell you definition of these. But pricing is something that as a broker, I get to see on the back end how that affects you, and your credit score plays into that. So let's say you may want a 5% credit score. I mean, a 5% interest rate. Well, if you have on the low end credit score, then you're going to have to pay more just for that interest rate, right? So you want to make sure that you're in a program where you're not at right the scale of the bottom where you're just getting there. You want to make sure that you have things paid off and paid down. 30% utilization is what everyone says is not of that one card, is total, right? You want to also make sure on your credit, talk to a credit repair professional. That I am not. But I can just tell you some things that, we will look at from the mortgage side. Mainly, we're going to look at, do you have things in collections? What is your overall credit profile? Are you going to be able to pay back this loan? We also look at, in terms of credit, like I said, are you a big risk, right? Because if you're a big risk, you do run the risk of having to pay more for that loan. All right. So the second thing that is going to make you a qualified buyer is capital. Do you have the ability to repay in the future, right? Credit shows your past and your capital shows your future. So they're going to look at things like your down payment. And we have programs that you're able to have 0% down payment. They have programs out there for $100 down, 3.5%, 1%. So there's different programs that will determine, that credit will determine if you can be able to get in that program. But that down payment is what's going to be needed in order to purchase. Whenever it comes to purchasing, you also have to factor in, a lot of people don't talk about this, but just because you have your down payment doesn't necessarily mean that covers your closing costs. Okay. Your down payment and your closing costs are two different things. Yes, honey, two different things. Okay. So you might be able to cover the down payment, but can you actually close this loan and be able to pay the required amount that can be from the borrower? This can be worked around. So for instance, FHA, you can be able to have family members or an employer gift you money for closing costs or down payment. There's also community programs, nonprofits. So you got to be creative if you don't have much to bring to the table in terms of down payment or closing costs. All right. And two other things that we definitely consider whenever the ability to repay. So it's a couple of things here, right? So your reserves, do you have any money saved up? So the reason this isn't always required, but usually, let's say if you get a DSCR loan, which is basically like a renter's loan, right? An investor that's a rental property type of loan. So what that is sometimes a lender wants you to have 3 to 6 months of savings in your account, or in a asset, something that's liquidable, right? We can pull it out. Liquidity. It don't matter. It got to be able to be cash, right? That you can get out right now. That can cover those rental costs. Other times you need reserves. We have type of loans where bank statements, right? Where you can use your bank statements to qualify. If you mainly get deposits, especially if you have a cash business, sometimes you can do bank statements. You have assets where, let's say, for instance, you may have, let's just say, $500,000 in assets, right? So if you have $500,000 in assets, what the lender is going to do, they can take that $500,000 of qualified assets, right? And then they're going to divide that by 12 and say, okay, you're able to have divided by 12, that's 41,000 years. So you more than qualified to get a certain loan. Or let's say you had $500,000 and you're looking to get a certain amount. So there's so many different ways. That's why I love real estate that can help you qualify for a loan. So you're not just stuck with, hey, this is all I have, is this type of income. So now let's talk about income. Okay. There's different types of incomes that you can use to qualify for a mortgage. This income can be, of course, everyone knows W-2s, which means you work for an employer, 1099, self-employed. As I said before, bank statements can qualify as an income, rental income. So border income, there's so many different ways and calculations that we can use in order to qualify your income. So stocks, dividends, is just come to me. I can't even, the list is exhaustive, okay, with the things that you can really qualify for. So I'm not going to go, into the list because there's a lot that can be used in terms of income. All right. Now, the main thing when it comes to your income is that it's going to affect your what is called a DTI. This is your debt to income ratio. This is where you factor in all of your debts from your personal loans, car loans, anything that's going to show up on your credit that says you owe this amount and this is what you're paying monthly, right? So we take all of that into consideration because there's a certain threshold, depending on the program, that can disqualify you or qualify you for that program. And so not only do you factor in, your debts in terms of that income, you can also, there's so many different ways that we can do income. I'm not even going to different strategies, but whether you have co-borrowers, things like that to help you with your income. Are these people living there? We're not trying to create, have mortgage fraud over here, but you can also have non-occupying borrowers on your loan. So it's so many different ways that I feel like no loan officer, no mortgage broker, nobody is talking about that can really enlighten you on a situation to really help you qualify for that refinance or qualify for that rental property or qualify for that purchase. Okay. Bless you, baby. The third thing that can help you become a qualified borrower is the appraisal, right? So one of the things that I think is pretty cool is that some of the commercial lenders that I've worked with, as well as residential, they allow for you to roll in closing costs. And I'm not saying this is across all the board, okay? It's just certain programs, but you can roll in, you can have your closing costs added in, as well as, your down payment rolled all into your mortgage. But here's the kicker. You have to have enough equity in your home to do that, okay? So let's talk about being a purchaser. As I said, we do have a lender that allows for you to roll those closing costs into your loan, but you have to have, the home has to appraise for a certain value in order for you to take advantage of that option, okay? So I'm not going to go into what that looks like. If you are, we'll talk about it. If you want to talk about your specific scenario, we can do that, but we're not going to go in depth here. We'll keep everything informational in general, okay? Because everybody's circumstance is different. Everybody's scenario is different. So whenever they are looking at it from a purchase standpoint, let's say you want to purchase this home is worth, let's say it's worth 750,000 and you put an offer in and they're selling it for the low, something you've never heard of, for for the amount of 500,000, right? You have more than enough equity. You have $200,000 in equity in that home that you can be able to roll that cost in or be able to really come to the table with little to nothing out of your pocket because you have the equity to do so. Right? So if you are doing a refinance, which means you already own the property and now you're either looking to reduce your interest rate or pull cash out, right? So if you're looking to reduce your interest rate, you still have to have a little equity in your home in order to do that refinance. If you are looking to pull cash out, what that means is you, as we said, the difference of your house, let's say you got a balance of 500,000 and it's worth 700,000. Well, you have $200,000 in equity. Now you can be able to take a portion of that equity out and now have a new loan balance, closing costs right away because you're pulling cash out. And now you have money to either pay down debt. You can go and reinvest that money into stocks, into real estate, however you feel. This is your money from your property. Okay, so appraisal is really about, is it worth the price the lender is willing to lend you? Okay, so we kind of talked about the value of a property and what appraisal allows for you to see and be able to do with that property. But let's talk about it from a rent standpoint. So if you're an investor, there's a certain appraisal that we get just for investors, right? When you're getting a rental property. So what we do is we see what is the local rental rates in that vicinity, right? So let's say, for instance, you want to rent your home out at $3,000 a month, which, hey, is your prerogative. If you got a borrower that's willing to do it, honey, a renter that's willing to do it, then do it. But let's say the rental rates in that area is $2,500. Well, it's up to the underwriter if they're going to use. Usually we will use, if they really are a renter in your home and they're paying $3,000 and they sign a contract for 2 years, we're using that. Sometimes, okay. But the underwriter wants to look at that appraisal and see, okay, is what this buyer or this refinancer, are they in the vicinity of what the area rental rates are? So let's say the area rental rates are $2,500. So what it shows the underwriter is that, hey, if you're at 3,000, oh my God, you're doing well. But let's say you're at 2,300. Well, one of the reasons may be, okay, I'm not giving you any hints on that, but one of those reasons may be, okay, I want to refinance because I am getting 2,300, but I want to be able to, once I do these renovations, I want to be able to charge 2,500. And so what happens on the back end that you don't get to see is that your loan tells a story to the underwriter. And so if they see, okay, they justify why they're doing this cash out because they want to be able to be at market with everyone else in the area. Okay, so the appraisal allows for you to do that. What also plays into an appraisal, and this is, like I said, it's just crazy how the mortgages work. Which is why I love it, because there's so many different ways. But the appraisal also lets you know if the house has enough value in it, and which can affect your LTV, which is your loan to value. So let's say you have a $500,000 purchase price, okay? Because the goal is here, the lender do not want to pay you more than what the house is worth, okay? That's what it is. So for instance, let's say you have a $500,000 purchase price that you're looking to purchase this house, right? FHA, they have 3.5% loans, right? So at 3.5%, you can, at 3.5%, that's your down payment. That's not your closing costs. Remember, it's not your closing costs. That's your down payment. So you can be able to get a loan for, and I'll tell you how much, 500,000 minus the 3.5%. Hope you guys, my calculator is doing the most. Okay. So 500,000, we times that by 3.5%, that's 17,500. That's going to be your down payment, right? And the rest of that, 482,500 is going to be that loan amount, plus fees and upfront mortgage insurance, all of that. It's a couple of more percentages that come into that goes into play. with FHA. So for conventional, let's say you want to put down 5%. 5% is usually the minimum for conventional programs. So that's going to be 5%. I do have if you're watching this, I have a free download, my qualified buyer spreadsheet. You can go in here and just start entering some numbers, just having some fun with it, play with some numbers. Definitely download it so you can have that option. Let's say minus 5%. I don't know why my computer. Okay. So now you got 500,000. 5% of that is 25,000. So now your loan, your down payment would be the 25,000, and then your loan amount would show 475,000. So that loan to value really matters, because if the house is not worth at least 500,000, now you're overpaying for that property. And the lender is going to want to know, why are you overpaying for this property? And that's what an appraisal allows for an underwriter to see. And also, from a negotiated standpoint, as a purchaser, nobody wants you purchasing a house more than it's worth, but that's your prerogative. Yes, you can be able to do that. Okay. The lender is not going to stop you, but you're going to have to bring more to the table in order to acquire that property. If you're a refinancer, if you have a value of 500,000 and you try to get a loan for 550,000, the underwriter is not going to allow you to do that. Why? The lender isn't, excuse me, because you're considered underwater. And what that means is you don't have enough value in the home to justify this loan amount. Now, if you are VA, that's a whole other ballgame. You can go up to 100% LTV, honey. Can't nobody do it like VA. There are some programs that will let you go up to 90% loan to value if you're doing a refinance, but usually the ballpark is about 80%. And then if you have a lower credit score, it's about 70, 75. Okay. But it depends on your situation, the house, the location, the appraisal. All of these things are factored in. So not one thing is going to disqualify you. There can be multiple things or all those things to where the scenario has to make sense for the loan program you're applying for. Honey, this is the last, but definitely not the least. I know ain't nobody talking about this. I didn't even know anything about this. So this last one, I didn't know anything about this until, let me clarify this, until we were buying properties cash on hand, right? And our first property we had purchased with cash on hand, we had, because in North Carolina, you have to have a lawyer draw up your papers, right? To do a transfer of deed. You can't just go and say, I want, you got to have a lawyer draw up the papers. Well, I knew about, title and everything whenever I was being a processing manager, loan officer, stuff like that, right? We pulled title in order to see what's going on. And I'm going to tell you a little bit. Let me tell you a story first. So when you pull title, there's two things that you can do in North Carolina. You can go ahead and just switch the title over from one person to the other, or they ask you, hey, do you want us to do a title search? Right? So let's say you decide, no, I don't want to do a title search. Well, you may be putting yourself at risk. When I'm as a loan officer, as a processor manager, always did a title search. We don't play that, right? Always do that. Well, with a couple properties, nothing happened. Nothing happened with the properties, but they give you that option if you're buying with cash. Always do a title search. Always. Here's why. I've done this even on the commercial side, right? Commercial and residential, do title searches always, because there may be things on the title that nobody knows about that could be holding you back or needs to be paid off. So for instance, let's say you had a contractor come and do some renovations in your home. Well, they can put a lien against your property. And of course, nobody's going to know about it until you're ready to refinance or purchase. And buddy, let me tell you, it will pop up on your title that you need to pay it off. If you have not paid your taxes, oh buddy, it's going to pop up on your title and let you know you got to pay your taxes. Okay. And so usually taxes are in your mortgage payment, but some people like to pay their taxes outside of their mortgage payment. Well, when you decide to do that, just know you better pay them taxes, okay? Because it's going to show in the title whether you did that or not. And you got to, buddy, you got to pay that. You got to either factor that into the loan or pay out of pocket. So always do a title search to make sure there's nothing holding you back on that property. This can be a title also lets you know about the flood zone. It lets you know more information about the property itself, your land, like where it's located around there. There can be liens, encumbrances, judgments. I've seen a judgment before on a commercial property before. And just other factors that may have to be clear before you can actually get this title, all right, in order to transfer or close your loan. So these 4 things, if anything went over your head, please, please, please do not hesitate to leave a comment so I can be able to just clarify some things. I would love to create a video. I'm looking to continue to do this, but I want to make sure that you know what is needed to really become a qualified buyer, whether you are a purchaser, a refinancer, or an investor. I've worked with all 3. I am all 3. So I understand what it looks like from the back end, the front end, and from the money end. Okay, because that matters as well. All right, you guys, if you don't have any questions, my beautiful bosses, we're going to end it here. I will be checking to see. Definitely listen to this if you're looking to purchase or refinance in the near future. Okay. And come holler at me. You never know. You might can qualify today. You never know. So go ahead, click the link. And I would love to be able to assist you if you are ready. All right. Bye.